Welcome to the Stories That Shape Us, where we have conversations about how discovering your identity, enhancing your relationships, and taking risks lead to a more purposeful life. I'm Tina Morales, and I'm an associate professional counselor and master's level marriage and family therapist. In my counseling practice, I help couples move from conflict to connection so they can start to live out their relationship vision.
I'm Kiera Johnson, and I own ATL Pula Wellness Studio with the vision of giving every family the hope and freedom to live a healthier life. Through our work, we create spaces and provide resources that foster true well-being.
We came together to bring you these stories so you can collect tools and insights from those who have stepped into their power and are making an impact. Join us on the road less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Stories That Shape Us. We are your hosts. I am Tina Morales.
And I'm Kiera Johnson.
And today we are going to be talking to Dorian Shockey. Before we jump in and tell you a little bit about Dorian, just want to say, Dorian, thank you for being here with us. How are you doing today?
Doing well, ladies. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about Dorian. Dorian is an experienced strength and conditioning coach with over 11 years of experience in the fitness field. He has multiple certifications, including CrossFit Level 1 certified 2009 and CrossFit Mobility. He's also the father of two precious little girls, Selah and Cali. Am I pronouncing their names right?
That's correct. Yes.
Selah and Cali, and a beautiful, endearing wife, Angel, who I just recently got the opportunity to meet. She's awesome. He's also the founder and owner of CrossFit Resurgens. And CrossFit Resurgens is a core strength and conditioning training facility that delivers fitness that is by design, broad, general, and inclusive. They teach functional movement patterns or movements that you find in real life. So pushing, pulling, squatting, jumping, throwing, carrying, sprinting, all the things. Mm-hmm. All right. So we are really excited to have Dorian here with us today and to learn a little bit more about his story and what got him here. So again, Dorian, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be able to learn a little bit more about you guys as well in the process.
Yes. Awesome. Well, Dorian, one way that we like to start off is kind of just going back and telling us a little bit about what even got you into this fitness, specifically CrossFit, but just your fitness journey in general.
Yeah. So it's a great question. So to break it down quickly, actually, went to school to play football. It didn't work out. Went back home to small town Ohio and worked in the factory for about a year until basically I had this aha moment that like I needed to get out of this area and try something new. So I actually moved to California, moved to LA. And while I was in LA, I needed to get a job. And I was working out at the gym and I was watching personal trainers and I saw them working out with their clients and doing things. And I was like, I could do that. And I applied and I got a job. I quickly realized there was a lot more than just training clients. There's a lot more into it and everything like that. But fortunately, I had some great trainers that were experienced and they took me underneath their belt and took me along and taught me how to do some things and how to train clients on a professional level, work my way up through the company chain of the corporation that I was with through the years and whatnot. And then from that got into management and then from management into some supervision. And that's kind of where it kind of led me and everything. But to tell you that, it also, as I kind of moved up the company chain, it actually took me away from what I enjoyed the most. And that was the one-on-one relationships, training clients, being able to see them get results and everything like that. And it became more of a business and at this time, a return to stockholders for the company that I was working with that was publicly traded.
Okay.
And so from there, I got promoted to a position in Atlanta and they moved Angel and I from Los Angeles to Atlanta to run the Southeast region. And that's when I fell into CrossFit.
Oh my goodness. You've literally traveled
Yeah.
from place to place. If you could take us back to, so you said went to school to play football. Mm-hmm. That didn't work out, went back to Ohio. Yep. And you said you had an aha moment.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that aha moment and like what you were experiencing at that place in life.
Yeah. So it was perfectly described. I went to school to play football, not to go to school. And so anyways, some some things happened within the course of that where I just was not mature enough to be able to handle the responsibilities of school. Went back home and I was working in a factory like several of my friends at the time in small town Ohio. And on my way to work one day, it's our day started at 5:30 a.m. and it ended at 5:30 p.m. And if you've ever been to Northeast Ohio, unbeknownst to me growing up, it's a very cloudy part of the States. And so literally I'd go to work, it was pitch dark, and then I'd get off of work and it was already pitch dark. And in the wintertime, you don't go outside during your breaks because it's
Cold.
snowy and it's cold. Yes, being from Boston and everything like that. One day on my way to work, I'm driving, it's early in the morning and whatnot. And I get to a railroad crossing. And the railroad crossing is not like, modern railroads. You have to literally stop here. Or you're going to lose your tire if you don't stop and kind of go over the tracks slowly. And as I was going over the tracks, had my radio station on, and it was not a Christian radio station. It was probably the least, Christian radio station on and whatnot, just listening to some music on the way in. And this song came on. And I was like, what is this thing playing as I'm going to the tracks and everything? And it was a song, and it started saying, I Can Only Imagine. And you may have heard the song before by Mercy Me. I Can Only Imagine. I'm not going to sing it for you. I want your listeners to stay on.
Okay.
But it's a Christian song by this group called Mercy Me. And it was just talking about, what it would be like one day to stand before God, and it kind of went on and this, said, what would you do when that happens, And as I get to that railroad crossing, I literally stopped. And it was like this moment where God was telling me okay, Dorian, you need to make some changes or in your life or you're going to be going down the wrong path, And I literally broke down in tears and just one of these spiritual moments where I knew this is it. And so from there, I know it sounds weird, but I decided to move to Los Angeles. But that was definitely a turning point in my young life, as I was trying to figure out my way.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's amazing to hear stories of faith like that. Yeah. And to be that tuned and to go back to that moment and remember it so concrete, you really took me there. That's tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how God can speak to us in so many different ways and so many in just different moments where maybe we're not even looking for it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in that moment, it was okay, God's speaking to me. So tell us a little bit about how faith has been a part of this journey for you.
Yeah. Great question, Tina. I was born and raised in the church. My mom and dad had my brothers and I in churches from as young as I can remember. Wednesday night, Sunday morning, had to go back in Sunday evening, kicking and screaming, and so anyways, that was just a part of our life and everything like that. So thankfully our parents were just they were very intentional in making sure that we were in church and whatnot, and just keeping us in sports and out of trouble and everything. But in my walk, I think like many people, there's ups and downs. And as I had gone home from school and everything like that, I was doing all the wrong things. I knew what I was supposed to be doing, but I was doing all the wrong things. And that was just one of those moments where it was kind of just okay, I need to get myself together and do what I know I should be doing from my walk and whatnot, So.
Yeah.
What was that like moving and uprooting to LA? Because had you even been there before? I mean, what were the steps to kind of get to that process?
No. Yeah. So it's crazy because growing up in small town Ohio, I thought the city of Cleveland was it. So my whole dream was to move to Cleveland and get an apartment. And I thought that was going to be it. My older brother worked in Cleveland. He had a corporate job up there. And so I'd get to spend some weekends up there with him. So I thought it was the coolest thing to go to Cleveland. And really the only time I'd ever been outside of state was to go to school in West Virginia and drive through Pennsylvania, so I never really had been outside and experienced, just other cities and just vacations or anything like that. This wasn't something that we did when I was growing up. So yeah, it was definitely a culture shock, but it was in a very cool way, but I had my father best friend, who was from our hometown, had moved out there, and he let me stay with his family. He was a pastor. He let me stay with his family as I kind of got on my feet and whatnot. And so it was a great way for me, everything lined up. God made it to where it was just like, okay, Dorian, here's the doors opening to make it happen. So
yeah,
and all the courage it takes to take the leap.
right. I think that's another thing in that story that I'm hearing is like there's a part of it that's risky, right? Like you're going somewhere maybe you've never been before. Maybe one or a couple of people who actually live there. But outside of that, there is a risk that you had to take to step into that spot, which then led you to like this exposure of working at a gym and like all the other things that connected. So what would you say are your thoughts around risk taking in just a personal and professional growth journey?
Yeah. I think I love the way risk is put. I also like to put it opportunity, and I was fortunate that my parents gave me an opportunity, to be able to do something like that, because without them and they're bringing me up and just the blessings that they poured into my brothers and I and everything like that, to be able to see, okay, here's an opportunity and then also take advantage of it. Because yeah, there's risk, but that risk is an opportunity to try and do something with and everything. And, I thankfully, God gave me the maturity and walked me through the steps, to be able to take advantage of that, and eventually it's funny because, I moved out there and it wasn't but a few months that I met my wife and then, then a few months later, well, not a few months later, but several months later that we got married and whatnot. So, it was a pretty crazy year. Actually, that all happened within basically a year and a half. So, but yeah. Yeah, but I like that. I like risk and opportunity. I think they go hand in hand, to take advantage of. So
yeah, I love that. I think it's like two sides of the same coin, right? Like being able to see it as you can either look at it as a risk and kind of be afraid of what it might bring. Yes. But you could also look at it as an opportunity and notice like, man, there's so many doors that could possibly open for me.
Yes. Yep. And that's, staying focused on those doors that are opening and knowing which ones to go to and which ones not to go through, but learning from those ones that you did go through that you maybe shouldn't have, as well.
Yeah.
So.
And by being faithful, just how many things fall into place. Like that's that you got there and you meet your wife and, you get that foundation. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's displayed of myself, but yes. Yeah.
I love it. So how long were you in Los Angeles?
About 4 years. So Angel was born and raised out there. I moved there in 2002, and then we moved to Atlanta in 2006. So it was just over 4 years that I was there.
And you take another risk and you move to the
south. Yes. Yep. Wow. And that was definitely against Angel's will, but thankfully she followed me, and and I tell you, that was another moment where I just felt like for us at that stage in our life and looking at taking further steps in our marriage and our family, that was something that just praying about it, that God had led us to and everything. It was definitely difficult though, because everything she knew and had done was there. I'd already taken a step to move away from everything that I had known and everything like that. And it wasn't something that initially she felt the same calling for and everything, but it for us was a step where, again, the doors opened. We both had opportunities in Atlanta, me for a promotion and her for her to be able to get a job. The other places that we had looked into possibly that we were interested in living, those doors were closed. And so it really kind of was, again, just, going out in faith, but seeing where God was kind of leading us, to make that transition and stuff. So
that's a thing.
That is.
Yeah. What would you say, like, if you could, because I know we're talking about like marriage, right? And taking, when we're growing as individuals, we're also growing in our marriage, right? Especially if you are married, if you're in relationship. So tell us a little bit about when you think about this relational journey along this individual growth journey. What would you say is something really important that maybe you learned along the way that would be helpful for other people when they're thinking about growing and doing so in relationship?
2 words came to mind. And I think one is unselfishness and the second one is focus, and from an unselfishness standpoint, I got to see unselfishness modeled by my parents. My mother was always self-sacrificing in regards to, whether it was working long hours to provide for my brothers and I and everything like that. My dad was in transition of work sometimes, and my father as well. but also got to see it modeled from Angel, you know, in regards to how unselfish she was and just going along with decisions I would make, even if she didn't feel, you know, compelled to do those, make those same steps and everything. And then how she modeled it in our marriage and our family. And so I'd say unselfishness, you know, is a big part, you know, and I think it's natural for us to be selfish in a lot of ways, you know. I think that's just the climate that's always been there. I don't want to say it's current or not. I think it's always been there. And then focus, you know, for me, having gone through different seasons in life and whatnot, you know, I've noticed when I focus internally, which again is that selfishness, you know, on myself, on my own needs, and taking that focus and pouring it outward. And then for me also pouring it upward, you know, to God and whatnot, and really in reverse, you know, pouring it upward so that I then can pour it outward, you know.
Powerful.
That was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Focusing it upward so that you can focus it outward as well. That's huge. That is huge.
And it's amazing to hear how much relationships have made a difference in your story, like from your parents just having you rooted to the pastor that helped you out in LA to your very own wife. It's just relationships are huge. It's amazing to hear that. Like at every stage, it seems like that's helped carry you.
I don't remember who quoted it, but it was old. I think it was maybe like Aristotle, but don't quote me on this. But I remember reading in a book recently, and it talked about how everything you do is built on the steps of someone else that's already done it, you know. And that's not verbatim, you know, but you know, you never get there on your own. You know, you can look back and to see the blessings that has been poured into you from people that have been unselfish, you know, from again, parents, you know, no matter what that journey was like, you know, sometimes there's ups and downs. Parents aren't perfect. You know, I'm learning that with my two daughters, you know, to your friends, you know, and even here at the gym, I think about my team and how unselfish they are, because the majority of them have full-time positions, you know, outside of the gym, and they still come here and they pour into the community and our members, you know, on a daily basis, you know, after they've dealt with everything that they may have dealt with, you know, good or bad at work as well. So it's amazing when you can take perspective of those things and see it for what it is, which is, you know, take the positive, you know, out of all of that. So
yeah, it's something that as you were speaking, it reminded me of the verse of the day. The verse of the day, which is talking, I'm gonna not quote it well either.
Don't worry. When you're ever on the spot, you have to quote the verse. It's never.
But it's that thing like where when there's two or more who come together, like you really do go further and farther further and farther. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But it's one of those things like this idea of, I know in our culture, this idea of being self-made is like really like,
so true.
Like it's elevated. It's almost like this is something to celebrate. Yeah. And it's the complete opposite. Like one, we're not self-made, but two, when we really know how to pour into our relationships, there is so many doors that are going to be open that we just could never even imagine. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know, Tina, you probably have to, you know, teach this on a daily basis with your clients and whatnot, you know. It's so easy to see that, you know, and I don't even know if people really understand or believe it. I think it's something that, again, cliche sayings that happen in culture that catch fire, and then it says, yes, I got to be self-made. And it's like, no, nobody is self-made. If you think you're self-made,
takes a village. Takes some village somewhere. Takes a village.
Yep.
Exactly. That's powerful. It reminds me also of the, like, you go alone, go faster, but go together.
That's right. Yes, I was thinking about that. Yes.
Yeah,
like, I think I missed the scripture with that quote.
Yeah, I couldn't quote that, but that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, I was going to butcher that one, so I'm glad you missed that. Yeah.
No, it reminds me of that. It's so powerful. Even in my own life, I think of that, like meeting my husband and like, just not only do you transform, like you said, kind of pouring up and becoming more loving and just better as a person, but going further too with each other than you would if you were more self.
Absolutely.
It's powerful.
Quick question for you. If you can kind of bring us back, because I know you've done a lot of, you've literally like had to uproot and move many times. But then also like, this is a big faith journey, right? Different opportunities are kind of, doors are opening, some aren't. What would you say has been the most challenging aspect of the journey?
Great question. The first thing that came to mind, Tina, is just, keeping my eyes on God. I'd have to say that's probably the biggest thing, in the midst of busyness, in the midst of distractions, in the midst of ups and downs and everything like that. It's just, it always comes back to, my relationship with Christ to keep me grounded, and I think that's always been the challenge that's always been there, and not in a bad way. I don't say that in a negative way. I just say that because it's something where, I've allowed myself to, to go astray. The Bible says that, right? We're all prone to go astray, and, it's like that old hymnal, prone to wander, I don't know the rest of it, but, but yeah.
Out here quoting it all.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I think what you're naming too is the fact that this kind of goes back to your point on focus, where sometimes the more we advance in life, the more more responsibilities we take on, and the more things are going to be competing for our attention and our focus.
Yeah. It is amazing. You think about years ago, I remember me and a buddy of mine, another supervisor, we wanted to play the lotto. It was like some ridiculous amount. And we both pitched in and got 10 tickets apiece. And we were dead set that our 20 tickets were going to win it. And we were talking about how we were going to split it and everything. And obviously we didn't win, but I say that because, it's amazing that, God knows what we need and what we don't need, and I think about that, in regards to just, decisions that we make and whatnot, and distractions that can come into our life and everything. And that, again, you think that you're doing something advanced, but is that the best thing? Not always. There's seasons of life where maybe you shouldn't do those types of things. I used to call it, when I was promoted, I always thought my job was going to get easier when I was in corporate America. And I always thought, if I get promoted, I get to this position, that's going to be better. I won't have to deal with this. But eventually, as I started working my way up through the chain, I used to call it new level, new devil, because I was just having a whole nother set of problems that I had to deal with that I didn't expect. So yeah.
Ooh, that was just all gems in what you just named.
More money, more problems. No, I'm
Yes. It's a great BIG right there, right?
Yes. Different challenges.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good. New level, new devil. That is so real.
Yeah.
I can understand that challenge, and almost that it reminds me of how it can be hard to stick to your purpose, and maybe staying in touch with God, continually checking your heart and why you're doing what you're doing too. It's just I hear you on that.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And speaking of, so she touched a little bit on challenges. I want to know, and I think I've gotten a few things, but what has been the most fulfilling, of all the risk taking and going from state to state, what's been the most fulfilling part of your work, your journey?
Seeing it in a way that there was nothing that I could have done to have made it work. There's been so many seasons in Angel and I's life where when we prayed about this, we prayed about that, and it didn't happen the way we were hoping it would happen. We didn't happen the way that we expected it would happen. It only happened in a way where it was nothing that we could have done. It was only in a way that God could have got the glory. That was
hard.
That is
hard. Yes, that is so powerful. Oh my God.
You try to control it, you try to manipulate it, and then at the end of the day, it's nope, none of those things worked. And then all of a sudden you think it's the 11th hour, it's 11:58, and it's not going to happen. And then God comes through, and it's man, this could have never have happened if it wasn't God in it. So yeah.
Wow.
I can just interview over.
Right.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
Wow. It really is a perspective shift for those of us who like to achieve, accomplish,
Yes.
strive. It's you can only do so much, and God does the rest.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I love that you said it, because, for me, I had also, in the midst of challenges, in the midst of seasons, had prayed for things, but I also never took a step of faith. I never acted on it. There was times where I was just I'll pray about it. Why isn't it happening? but I never took any step of faith to do it either. And,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I started taking those steps of faith and that doors would start opening or shutting and whatnot, and God would reveal it. So, there's also that action that we have to take. Faith without works is no faith at all, and we have to still, go out there and not make it happen, but we have to go out there in faith and expect God to meet us where we're at and deliver however he wants to deliver for us. So.
Oof. Oh my goodness, this is so good.
I'm just going to marinate in that for about another month or so. Just because, seriously, I can totally agree with you in our own journey in entrepreneurship. It's humbling too.
Mm-hmm.
It's humbling in a way. It's peaceful. It's humbling because it's okay,
yeah,
you're used to, I study, get your A's.
Yes.
You do everything in your power. And it, like you said, it not work the way you intended, but God gives you that assistance, that helping hand, and that's who gets the glory at the end. It's there's humility in that, and then there's peace in that. For me, I've learned my husband, like you, is way better at this concept, and I've taken longer to get there.
Yeah.
But there's peace in that by surrendering. It's I did my best, I did everything I could, I believed, I worked, you got it.
Yeah,
that's so powerful.
Yeah,
I
kind of feel like I could go so much deeper into this because there is so much, there's so much surrender. There's so much humility. There's so much perspective shift. And I think a lot of what you're sharing is really, really helpful for whoever is listening right now, because you are in a position of leadership, right? You are the owner of a gym. And to hear you talk about, there's nothing that I could have done that would have gotten me here. I just took my step of faith and God met me where I am. It's such a transformation of how we can think about ourselves, but also our relationship to the titles that we wear, the hats that we wear, and our relationship with God in the process. It's just, you're just sharing so many beautiful insights. And so if you could give somebody maybe a practical tool that, say they're in a journey and they're kind of striving, they're trying to make a way for themselves, and they believe in God and they're trying to also enhance their relationship with him. What would be maybe a practical tool for someone who's trying to start a journey of whatever they think it is that they are called to?
I would say to look to your past. Remember where you've been and where God's already taken you. Remember, the steps that God has got into where you're even at right now, currently. I think it's very easy to forget where God's already answered our prayers, big or small, and delivered us in numerous situations. We've all said those prayers, God, if you just do this, if you just take care of this, right? Those anxious moments where we've all just, been at our wits' end with whatever the situation may be, where the enemy's just attacking us, and we've gotten through it. We've made it, and God's answered all those prayers. He's never failed us. And I think remembering where you've been and where God has taken you, which is so easy. We see it throughout the Bible, right? We see it Israelites all the time, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But the Israelites are us in the Old Testament. That is us. You know what I mean? So that would be what I would think of, as advice to them is, to remember God's blessing, his in unmeasurable pouring out upon our lives, and to just take heed of that, not to think less of it than what it is, so something you can always go back on.
I love that, because sometimes people look to their past and they're like, oh, this is the thing I'm trying to get away from. But I love that you said that, because it's look at the past and look what God has done for you in terms of what you've survived, what you've been through.
Yes.
It's not something that we have to run away from. It's something that we can take with us because God was in that too. Yes,
absolutely. It's exactly like Joseph, right? Where Joseph, his brothers tossed him into the well. He was then his the Potiphar's wife, lied about him. All these things happened, but what the enemy meant for evil, God turned it for his good. And in our life, even those things where we might look back on and see wait a minute, hold on a second, what was the end result of that though? how did God turn that into blessing? How did God turn that for our good and whatnot? And I think we can all look at that. Just knowing, talking with Taj and us being able to, bond more in the past and everything, but still, even when we get to catch up, and he gets to share things of how God's worked in your guys' life and everything like that, and the decisions that you guys have made together, it's the exact same thing, over and over again, where it might seem like, oh, should we be doing this? Should we not be doing this? Oh, I thought this was going to work out this way. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, this would have never have happened if it wasn't for God doing this. And I say that because the business would never have happened if Angel and I had never did not go through some of the financial challenges and difficulties that we went through prior to the business getting started.
Ooh. Oh, I feel like that's like a whole nother interview, because I love talking about financial challenges, and I know that can be really sensitive for people too. Ooh, we might need to have another interview on that one.
I'm just sitting here soaking in for real, because I'm like, yes, looking to the back, just yes, remember how much he's loved you to keep you, to use those things that you thought weren't in your favor that ended up being in your favor because it opened to something else. It's amazing.
I think one thing I wanted to go back to that you mentioned earlier was about, and maybe this could be kind of a lesson for someone, because I think it's really powerful. What you said was to know when to walk through open doors and when to not, like to be able to decipher between what doors you walk through that are open, what doors are shut, that you don't need to worry about.
How
did you kind of determine that or decipher that on the journey?
It was a discerning voice that was speaking to me, that God was leading me, and some of it really, I don't even know. I guess, the doors would be shut that were needed to be shut, but then God also, I felt like, left me a glimmer of hope that there was still a door open, I guess maybe is a better way to say it, so where I thought like, okay, this is it, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going and stuff like that, God would shut that door. And then, and then there would be a part of me that's like, oh my God, is this going to happen? Is this really, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to start this business. Cause it was literally a 3-year period, where I had applied for affiliation, got approved. But then it was a 3-year period of God preparing us to be able to start the business and everything like that. So we weren't able to open until 2012, and so, yeah, I feel like it was like during those times, I felt like, oh my goodness, maybe this is just never going to happen. 3 years, it felt like an eternity and stuff like that. And then there was opportunities to continue in where I was doing. So it was like, well, maybe I'm just made to stay where I'm at, but God would always leave that door open. And also, I guess the best way to put it too, is that the passion was always there. And I just remember asking God, I can't understand that you would give me this passion to do this if it wasn't something that you wanted me to do,
Ooh, that's good. Kind of like I hearing that, it's almost something like things to be aware of when you are going through a season of waiting, right? Oh gosh, wait on the Lord is like one of the things that is so hard, because like you said, it doesn't happen like we think it's going to happen. It doesn't happen when we think it's going to happen. And so to have to wait and to have to sit in patience when you have a passion is so difficult. If you could give maybe one tool that helped you be patient and still persevere through those 3 years.
Yeah. Wow. I'm laughing because I'm not a patient person. Yeah. That's gosh, what would that be? What would it's hard, Tina, because I really didn't have a choice. The way things just kind of the way God led it. You started to see it unfold, but within the first probably a year and a half, 2 years, it wasn't there, but every setback that I perceived as a setback, every challenge where I was, impatient or feeling like it wasn't going to happen, God used it as a stepping stone. And so again, looking back on it, remembering, it was like, no, like I was able to take this from that and that from this, and I could see where God was taking it, and I started to see it unfold, which was awesome to see it again, in that circumstance, slowly start to, take form, and only happen again by God's power, so, but yeah, it's that's a hard one because I don't know if it was again anything that I could have done, patience wise, so yeah.
That. Well,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is so cool, right? Because I'm similar in the sense that when my mind is set on something and I think I know what it's going to look like and how it's going to look and all these things, God has to sometimes say, no, you're not going to have a choice in this, right?
Yeah.
Because if you tried too many, you would think that this is all you. And so sometimes I love what you said, which was, sometimes those things that I perceived as setbacks were actually stepping stones. And so if we could tell the people who are watching or listening, maybe that's a question that someone can journal through, which is simply, what are you looking at as a setback and how is God using it as a setback?
Yeah.
I think that's powerful what you just said.
Yes. So no, that's great, Tina. Yeah.
It reminds me of the meme where I think there was a little girl and they're like handing a teddy bear to Jesus. And at the same time, she was like, but I love it, God. And like he had a big teddy bear behind his.
Yes.
It's just, it reminds me of that. I have so many stories like that too, where
yes,
the better is for you. And but I've been humbled in that my timing is not God's timing. God don't pay attention to my watch. And like, and that's patience. That same with you. I've had to learn sometimes against my own will.
Yeah.
Powerful takeaway. Yeah,
that's why it's so good that we reflect. I don't do it nearly enough. It's something that just even getting to talk with you guys, it's like, okay, this take that time to reflect and look back and like you said, Tina, like I love how you took my stuff and turn it into something like take those setbacks as stepping stones. So yeah,
that is so good.
Yeah,
that right there is another lesson. You just said, look at the past, reflect, and I think that requires us to pause. Right. It does require to slow down a little bit. And like we know, we're in a culture that we like to move fast. And slowing down is, Taj said this one from a conference that he was at, where it says, and I'm going to hope I quote this right, but we live a NASCAR life and we follow a God who walks. Seriously.
Yes.
And so
it's
really, really powerful to slow down and pause. It is. So I know we've been talking a lot about the past and the journey. But if you could tell us where you are now, whether that's personally or professionally, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and where you think God is taking you next.
It's a great question. It's actually, next week I'm actually kind of outlining some things for like the following years and everything like that, from a goal perspective. And it's something I need to do more often from a business perspective as well. But, I love the name of your company and whatnot, Living in Light and the stories that shape us and everything like that. I feel like it's just, and then letting God shine through your business and how you, are able to counsel to couples and everything like that are seeking, this guidance and everything. And when the business was founded, I always said I wanted it to glorify God, and I think, going forward and continuing to go forward, it's something that I want to make sure that the steps that we're taking, that I'm taking, are glorifying to God, so just however being a light, and letting God's light shine through myself, through Resurgens, to others, whether they know that that's Christ or not, I want that to be something that is at the forefront. There's a book, I have a client, he was just telling me about it, and I haven't read it yet, but the story of the book was about this rowing team, the U.S. Olympic rowing team from years ago. While they were trying to get better, they were just like everything they were doing, they weren't getting any better results. And so the what they said was, hey, what are we doing to move this boat forward better, right? And so everything they did now was about moving that boat forward better. And so anyways, it made me just think about that and that, okay, God, how are we moving forward better for you, and so I don't know if that answers your question completely, but I think that's just going forward is just how we can do that in whatever capacities with relationships and through how we conduct ourselves. So
love it.
I think it's perfect, and it's in line with our whole message. Like what God's plan is, that's God's plan. So just even like leaving yourself open, leaving your future and submitting your goals to that is powerful.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we always like to end with, is there anything you wanted to share? Any question we didn't get to ask you that you would have wanted us to, and how would you answer it?
No, I don't think so. No, the only thing I would like to end with is just, commending you ladies on your podcast. And, I told Tina when she first reached out to me that, I got to just check out and see what it is that you guys do and how it is that you are allowing God to use you to reach others. And again, your work, whether it's through the studio and then through counseling and everything like that, and putting God first and foremost and putting that out there. I think that's just amazing. It's a blessing to, be able to see that. I feel like I'm older now, I remember being where you guys are at, and it's great seeing, our, previous generations before me, continuing to let God, work through them. So I just commend you guys on that, and just, would just tell you to keep on doing what you're doing, because that is glorifying to God, and it's apparent again, and just how you guys put that out there right from the beginning. So, and it's needed, more and more generations that are coming up, they need to see leaders like yourself doing that within your sphere of influence, so.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Dorian, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story with us. If people want to get connected to you and to CrossFit Resurgens, where can we send them?
Yeah, just www.crossfitresurgens.com. Just look that up. All of our information is on there, whether you want to email us or call us or anything like that. But all the general information is on there as well. If you just want to even look and see what we do and how we do it and everything. So, or Instagram, is also a good little place to look too. So
awesome. We will be sure to put all that in the description. Thank you again. Seriously, it's been awesome.
Well, thank you for your time as well. I'm glad we finally got to connect.
All right. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.